Welcome to Manuela's Story Library. Manuela's Story Library, where every story finds a home. Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to our cozy corner where love stories come alive and every tale touches the heart. I'm so glad you're here with us today. Today, we're traveling across the ocean to the breathtaking city of Naples, Italy, where the scent of the Mediterranean mingles with secrets whispered through ancient cobblestone streets. This is the story of Sofia Moretti, a young American translator who never imagined that speaking Italian to comfort a lost child would change her entire life. In that crowded market, surrounded by colorful stalls and the chaos of daily life, her voice caught the attention of the most dangerous man in Naples, Dante Caruso, a powerful mafia boss haunted by a love he lost 5 years ago. The moment he heard her speak, something impossible happened. Her accent, her voice, the way she pronounced each word, it was identical to his deceased wife's. Identical. But how could that be? Who was this mysterious woman? And what dark secrets from the past were about to surface and pull her into a world of danger, passion, and deadly betrayal? Stay with me, because this story will take your breath away. You won't believe what happens next. The afternoon sun painted the Pigna Secca market in golden hues, casting long shadows across the narrow cobblestone streets of Naples. The air was thick with the scent of ripe tomatoes, fresh basil, and the salty breeze that drifted up from the harbor. Vendors called out their prices in rapid-fire Italian, their voices competing with the rumble of Vespas and the chatter of shoppers navigating the crowded walkways. Sofia Moretti stood near a fruit stand, her fingers gently testing the ripeness of a peach. At 28, she had finally made the move she'd been dreaming about for years, leaving her quiet life in Boston to work as a freelance translator in Italy. Naples hadn't been her first choice. Most Americans flocked to Rome or Florence, cities wrapped in postcard-perfect beauty. But something about Naples called to her, a pull she couldn't quite explain. It felt like coming home, even though she'd never been here before. She was wearing faded jeans and a cream-colored silk blouse that fluttered in the breeze, her chestnut hair falling in loose waves around her shoulders. The Italian shopkeepers had already started recognizing her, this American girl with the strange gift of speaking their language like she'd been born in these very streets. They didn't understand it, neither did she. That's when she heard it. A child's cry, high-pitched and terrified, cutting through the marketplace noise like a knife. Sofia turned and saw a little girl, no more than 5 years old, standing alone near the fish vendor's stall. Her face was streaked with tears, her small hands clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. The child was crying in Italian, calling for her mama, her voice breaking with each sob. Without thinking, Sofia moved toward her. She knelt down on the rough stones, ignoring the dampness seeping through her jeans, and placed a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. "Hey, Piccolina," Sofia said softly, her voice dropping into the warm, melodic cadence of the Neapolitan dialect. "Don't cry, sweetheart. We'll find your mama, I promise. What's your name?" The little girl hiccuped, her tear-filled eyes meeting Sofia's. "Chiara," she whispered. "Chiara. What a beautiful name," Sofia continued in that same lilting Italian, the words flowing from her lips as naturally as breathing. "You know what? My nonna used to tell me that brave girls named Chiara always find their way home. And you're very brave, aren't you?" The child nodded slowly, her crying beginning to subside. "That's my girl. Now tell me, what does your mama look like?" But Sofia didn't notice the stillness that had fallen over a portion of the crowd. She didn't see the way people were carefully stepping back, creating a circle of space around a man who stood 15 feet away, watching her with an intensity that made the air feel electric. Dante Caruso stood frozen, his dark eyes locked on the young woman kneeling before the child. He'd come to the market as he did every Friday, an old habit from before his world had turned to ash. His 2 bodyguards flanked him at a respectful distance, their hands resting inside their jackets. But Dante wasn't thinking about security. He wasn't thinking about the shipment arriving at the port tonight, or the meeting with the Russo family tomorrow. All he could hear was her voice. That voice. His jaw clenched so tightly that pain shot through his temples. His hands, scarred and deadly, trembled slightly at his sides. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, and for a moment, just a moment, he forgot to breathe. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. The woman's voice, her accent, the specific way she pronounced the Neapolitan words with that particular musical quality, it was Julia's voice, his wife's voice, the woman who had been dead and buried for 5 years. "Capo," one of his men whispered cautiously. "Are you—" "Quiet," Dante breathed, the word barely audible. His eyes never left the woman. She was speaking to the child now, telling her a story about a rabbit who got lost in a magical garden but found its way home by following the smell of Mama's cooking. The little girl was smiling now, distracted from her fear. The woman, this impossible woman, had a face Dante had never seen before, but that voice, that accent, belonged to a ghost. As Sophia helped Chiara spot her frantic mother pushing through the crowd, Dante moved closer. His expensive Italian shoes made no sound on the ancient stones. People parted before him like water around a ship's hull, their eyes carefully averted. Everyone in Naples knew Dante Caruso. Everyone knew not to stare. The reunion between mother and daughter was tearful and joyful. The woman thanked Sophia profusely, kissing both her cheeks in the Italian way before hurrying off with Chiara clutched tightly in her arms. Sophia stood, brushing off her knees, a small smile playing on her lips. She felt good. She'd helped someone. It was a simple thing, but that accent. The voice came from directly behind her, low and rough, like whiskey poured over gravel. Sophia turned and found herself face to face with the most intimidating man she'd ever seen. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that strained against his perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was slicked back, showing off a strong, angular face that was both handsome and dangerous. A few days' worth of stubble shadowed his jaw, and a small scar cut through his left eyebrow. But it was his eyes that held her captive. Dark, almost black, and burning with an intensity that made her heart stutter in her chest. He wore his power like a second skin. Even without knowing who he was, Sophia could sense it. This was a man accustomed to obedience, to fear, to control. "Who are you?" Dante asked, his voice carefully controlled despite the chaos raging inside him. His eyes searched her face, looking for something, anything that made sense. Sophia's instincts screamed at her to be careful. Every fiber of her being recognized danger when she saw it. But she lifted her chin slightly, refusing to be intimidated. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" she asked in English, her Boston accent a stark contrast to the Italian she'd been speaking moments before. "You're American," Dante stated, his own English flawless but colored with an Italian accent. "Yes. Is that a problem? Where did you learn to speak Italian like that?" His eyes narrowed. "That specific dialect, that accent." Sophia felt a flutter of unease in her stomach. I'm not sure, actually. I studied Italian in college, but that particular accent, it just came naturally. I've always been good with languages." She paused. "Why? Why does it matter?" Dante didn't answer. He couldn't. How could he explain that she sounded exactly like his dead wife? That hearing her speak had ripped open wounds he thought had scarred over? "What's your name?" he demanded. Sophia Moretti." She crossed her arms, a defensive gesture. "And you are?" "Dante Caruso." The name meant nothing to her. She didn't see the way several nearby vendors had gone pale, didn't notice the bodyguards shifting closer. She just saw a man staring at her like she was a ghost. "Well, Mr. Caruso, it was interesting meeting you, but I really should—" "Wait." His hand shot out, not touching her but blocking her path. "How long have you been in Naples?" 3 weeks. "Look, I don't know what this is about, but—" 3 weeks, he repeated softly, almost to himself. His mind was racing, calculating. You're staying here? In the city? Yes, in Chiaya. But I really don't see why. I need to talk to you. Not here. Dante glanced around the market, suddenly aware of the many eyes watching them. Somewhere private. Sophia took a step back. I don't think so. I don't know you, and frankly, you're kind of freaking me out. For the first time in 5 years, something close to a smile touched Dante's lips. It didn't reach his eyes. Smart girl, you should be afraid. But I'm not going to hurt you, Sophia Moretti. I just need answers. Answers to what? To questions I didn't know I had until 5 minutes ago. He pulled a business card from his pocket and held it out. Villa Caruso Posilipo. Tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock, please. The please seemed to cost him something. Sophia stared at the card, then at him. Every rational part of her brain told her to walk away, to refuse, to get as far from this dangerous man as possible. But there was something in his eyes. Pain. Deep, soul-crushing pain that mirrored something she'd felt her whole life. A sense of incompleteness, of questions without answers, of a missing piece she'd never been able to name. Against her better judgment, she took the card. I'm not promising anything, she said. I know. Dante's eyes held hers for a long moment. But you'll come, because you feel it too. The questions. Before Sophia could respond, he turned and walked away, his bodyguards falling into step behind him. The crowd swallowed them up, and suddenly the market noise rushed back in, as if someone had turned the volume back up on the world. Sophia looked down at the card in her hand. Heavy cream-colored paper, embossed lettering. Villa Caruso, an address in Posilipo, one of Naples's wealthiest neighborhoods. What had she just agreed to? That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. She lay in her small apartment, listening to the sounds of Naples filtering through her open window. Distant laughter, a dog barking, the rumble of a late-night Vespa. The moon cast silver light across her bedroom floor. She kept thinking about Dante Caruso's eyes, the way he'd looked at her like she was something impossible, something that hurt to see. And there was something else. When he'd spoken, when she'd heard his accent, something had stirred in her memory. Not a specific memory exactly, but a feeling. A sensation of familiarity that made no sense. Sophia rolled over and opened the drawer of her nightstand. Inside was a small wooden box, worn smooth by time. She opened it and pulled out a delicate gold locket, the only thing her adoptive mother had given her from her past. Sophia had been adopted as an infant. She'd always known this, had grown up in a loving home in Boston with parents who adored her. But they'd had so few answers about where she came from. An orphanage in southern Italy, they'd said. No records of parents. Just this locket. She opened it now, as she had countless times before. Inside was a photo, faded and grainy. 2 babies, identical, lying side by side. Twins. Sophia had always wondered about that photo. Was the other baby her twin? Did she have a sister out there somewhere? Her adoptive parents hadn't known. The orphanage records had been destroyed in a fire years ago. She traced the image with her fingertip. For the first time in her life, she felt like she might be close to answers. The next evening, Sophia stood before the gates of Villa Caruso as the sun began its descent toward the Gulf of Naples. The mansion was more intimidating than she'd imagined. A sprawling neoclassical structure painted in warm terracotta, surrounded by manicured gardens and tall iron gates bearing an intricate family crest. She dressed carefully, choosing a simple white linen dress that felt appropriate without seeming like she was trying too hard. Her heart hammered against her ribs. A man in a dark suit approached the gate from inside. Miss Moretti? Yes. Il Capo is expecting you. The gate swung open with a low mechanical hum. Sophia walked up the curved driveway, her sandals crunching on the white gravel. The gardens were breathtaking. Ancient olive trees, cascading bougainvillea, marble fountains that sang with falling water. The scent of jasmine hung heavy in the air. Dante was waiting for her on the terrace, leaning against a stone balustrade with the gulf spread out behind him like a painting. He'd exchanged his suit for dark slacks and a white dress shirt, the sleeves rolled to his elbows, exposing the intricate tattoos that covered his forearms. Sophia caught glimpses of script, of a crowned lion, of symbols she didn't recognize. "You came," he said simply. "I almost didn't." Sophia stopped a few feet away, maintaining distance. "I looked you up last night. You're not exactly what I'd call a safe dinner companion." Dante's lips quirked. "You researched me." "Good. Then you know I'm a man who gets answers." "I know you're the head of one of the most powerful crime families in southern Italy," Sophia said bluntly. "I know people are afraid of you. I know I should be afraid of you. But you're here anyway. Because you looked at me yesterday like I was a ghost, Mr. Caruso. And I want to know why." Dante studied her for a long moment, then pushed off the balustrade. "Come inside. There's something I need to show you." He led her through the villa, and Sophia couldn't help but stare at the opulence around her. Marble floors that gleamed like mirrors, frescoed ceilings depicting scenes from classical mythology, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. But despite the beauty, there was something cold about the space. Unlived in, like a tomb dedicated to the past. They entered what appeared to be a study, dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk positioned to face windows overlooking the water. But Dante walked past all of this to a portrait hanging on the wall. "Her name was Julia," he said quietly. "My wife." Sophia stepped closer to the painting, and her breath caught in her throat. The woman in the portrait was her. Or rather, it was someone who looked exactly like her. Same chestnut hair with reddish highlights, same green hazel eyes, same heart-shaped face. Even the small mole on the left side of her neck was identical. "Oh my God," Sophia whispered. "She died 5 years ago," Dante continued, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. "Car accident. Or at least, that's what everyone believed." He turned to face Sophia, and the pain in his eyes was almost unbearable to witness. "When I heard you speak yesterday, I thought I was losing my mind." Julia had that same accent, that specific dialect from a small village outside Naples. It's almost extinct now. No one speaks it anymore except old people from that region. Sophia couldn't take her eyes off the portrait. "I don't understand. Who is she? How is this possible? That's what I need you to help me figure out." Dante moved to his desk and pulled out a folder. "After I saw you yesterday, I had my people do some research. Sophia Moretti, born October 15, 1997, in a small orphanage in Campania. Adopted by Robert and Margaret Moretti of Boston when you were 6 months old." "You investigated me?" Sophia's voice rose. "You had no right?" "Julia Caruso, born October 15, 1997, Dante interrupted, his voice hard. "Same orphanage, adopted by the Russo family when she was 6 months old." The room seemed to tilt. Sophia gripped the back of a chair to steady herself. "We're the same age. Born in the same place. On the same day. Twins," Dante said flatly. "You were twins, separated at birth." Sophia's mind raced. The locket, the photograph of 2 babies. She'd been carrying a picture of her sister her entire life without knowing it. But that would mean... Sophia looked up at Dante, her eyes wide. "Julia was my sister, my twin sister, and I never knew. She never knew." "No, she didn't." Dante's voice was thick. "She had no idea she'd been adopted. Her family, my family now, never told her." Sophia felt tears burning her eyes. All those years of wondering, of feeling like a part of her was missing. And her sister had been here, in Italy, living a life Sophia would never know about. And now she was gone. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for your loss." "Don't." Dante's voice cracked like a whip. "Don't apologize. You didn't know." He was quiet for a moment, wrestling with emotions he rarely allowed himself to feel. But there's more. Things about Julia's death that never made sense. Inconsistencies in the accident report. Witnesses who disappeared. Evidence that was lost. Sophia looked up at him. You think she was murdered? I know she was murdered. Dante's hands clenched into fists. But I couldn't prove it. I've spent 5 years trying to find out who and why, and every trail went cold. His eyes locked on hers. Until yesterday. Until I heard your voice and realized that maybe, just maybe, there were things about Julia's past I didn't know. Things that might explain why someone wanted her dead. You think it has something to do with her being a twin? With us being separated? I don't know. But you're the only lead I've had in 5 years. Dante stepped closer, and Sophia could feel the intensity radiating from him like heat. I need your help, Sophia. I need you to help me find out the truth about Julia's past. Our past. Why would I help you? Sophia's voice shook. You're a criminal. You hurt people. You... Because she was your sister, Dante cut in, his voice raw. Because you deserve to know why you were separated. Because somewhere out there are answers about who you really are, where you came from, and why your sister died. And because whether you want to admit it or not, you feel it. The connection. The pull toward the truth. Sophia wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. He was right. From the moment she'd arrived in Naples, she'd felt it. And now, standing in this room, looking at the portrait of a woman who was her mirror image, she knew she couldn't walk away. If I do this, she said slowly, if I help you, I need your word that you won't hurt me, that you'll keep me safe. You have my word, Dante said immediately. On my life, on Julia's memory, I swear it. No harm will come to you while you're under my protection. Sophia took a deep breath. Okay, where do we start? Over the following weeks, Sophia found herself pulled deeper into Dante's world. It was nothing like she'd imagined. Yes, there was danger. She'd be a fool to think otherwise. The men who worked for Dante carried guns and spoke in coded language. Meetings happened in back rooms and dimly lit restaurants. She'd catch glimpses of a life governed by violence and loyalty in equal measure. But Dante himself was not what she'd expected. Away from his public persona, away from the fear and respect his name commanded, he was different. Quieter, almost gentle. They spent hours in his study, going through old documents, photographs, letters. Dante showed her everything he had on Julia's past. The family she'd been adopted into, the Russos, had been legitimate business people, or so everyone thought. But as they dug deeper, cracks began to appear. Giovanni Russo, Julia's adoptive father, had been in debt. Serious debt to some very dangerous people. He'd died of a heart attack 6 months before Julia married Dante. Do you think that's why they agreed to the marriage? Sophia asked one evening, looking up from a stack of financial records spread across Dante's desk. To clear the debts? Dante sat across from her, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Partly, but Julia and we loved each other. It wasn't arranged, not in the way you're thinking. We met at a charity gala. She was 20, I was 35. Everyone said I was too old for her, too dangerous. But she saw something in me no one else did. There was such tenderness in his voice when he spoke of Julia that Sophia felt her heart ache. What was she like? She asked softly. Dante smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. She was light. That's the only way I can describe it. In a world of darkness, she was pure light. She believed in goodness, in redemption. She thought she could change me, save me. His smile faded. She was wrong. This life, it doesn't let you go. But you loved her. More than my own life. Dante's eyes met Sophia's. When she died, I died with her. I've just been breathing ever since. The raw honesty in his words stunned Sophia into silence. They sat there in the study, the late evening light painting everything in shades of amber and shadow, and for the first time, Sophia saw past the monster everyone said he was. She saw a man in mourning, A man who'd lost everything that mattered. "Tell me something about yourself," Dante said suddenly. "Something that has nothing to do with any of this." Sophia blinked, surprised by the change in subject. "What do you want to know?" "Anything. What do you do when you're not translating? What makes you happy?" Sophia thought about it. "I love old movies. The black and white ones, from the 40s and 50s. There's something about them, the way they told stories back then. The romance felt more real, even though it was all in black and white." Dante's expression softened. "Julia loved old movies too. She used to make me watch them with her. I'd complain, say they were boring, but secretly I loved watching her face light up during the happy endings." They talked long into the night, and Sophia found herself sharing things she rarely told anyone. Her childhood in Boston, her adoptive parents who'd been loving but strict, her decision to drop everything and move to Italy on a whim, her fear that she'd spend her whole life feeling like she didn't quite belong anywhere. "And then I came here," she said, "and it felt like I'd found the missing piece. Except I didn't know what it was I'd found until you showed me that portrait." Dante leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Can I ask you something personal? Haven't we been asking each other personal questions all night?" "This is different." He hesitated, which was so unlike him that Sophia felt her pulse quicken. "When you look at me, what do you see?" "What do I see?" Sophia repeated. She considered lying, giving him some platitude, but there'd been enough lies. "I see a man who terrifies me and fascinates me in equal measure. I see someone who's spent so long being hard that he's forgotten what it feels like to be soft. I see pain that runs so deep it's become part of who you are." She paused. "But I also see someone who loved so completely that he hasn't figured out how to stop, even though the person he loved is gone." Dante's jaw tightened. For a moment, Sophia thought he might be angry. But then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "When I look at you, I see her. And I hate myself for it because you're not her. You're your own person, and I have no right to look at you and see a ghost." He stood abruptly, walking to the window. "You should go. It's late." Sophia recognized a dismissal when she heard one. She gathered her things, but at the door, she turned back. "Dante." He didn't turn around, just stood there silhouetted against the window, a dark figure against the lights of Naples spread out below. "I'm not her," Sophia said gently. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe we both need to figure out who I am, separate from who she was." She left before he could respond. The breakthrough came 3 weeks after Sophia had first walked through the gates of Villa Caruso. They were having dinner at Trattoria de Gennaro, a restaurant Dante owned, or more accurately, a front for his operations. The owner, an elderly man named Gennaro, who'd known Dante since he was a boy, fussed over them like a grandfather. "Mangia, mangia," he insisted, bringing out plate after plate of food. Fresh mozzarella that melted on the tongue, pasta with clams that tasted like the sea, veal so tender it fell apart at the touch of a fork. Sophia was laughing at something Gennaro had said when she saw him. A man across the restaurant, watching them with cold blue eyes. He was in his late 30s, handsome in a polished way, wearing an expensive suit. But there was something about him that made Sophia's skin crawl. "Dante," she said quietly. "Who is that man? The one staring at us." Dante followed her gaze, and his entire demeanor changed. His spine straightened, his expression turned to stone. "Marco Vitale, my second in command." But the way he said it, there was something else there. Distrust, suspicion. Marco stood and approached their table, a smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. "Capo, I didn't know you'd be here tonight." It was a last-minute decision. Dante's voice was cold. Marco's eyes slid to Sophia, and she felt like she was being assessed, calculated. "And who is this? Another woman who looks remarkably like—" "Watch your mouth, Marco." The threat in Dante's voice was unmistakable. Marco held up his hands in mock surrender. "No disrespect intended. I'm just surprised to see you moving on after all these years. Julia would be happy for you. You didn't know my wife well enough to speak for her." The tension at the table was suffocating. Marco smiled again, but there was a flash of something ugly in his eyes. "Of course, Capo. Enjoy your meal." After he left, Sophia leaned forward. "You don't trust him." "No," Dante admitted. "I don't. Marco was with me the night Julia died. He was supposed to be protecting her while I was handling business across town, but somehow he wasn't there when her car went off the road. He's always had an excuse, always had an explanation. But," Dante trailed off, his hands clenching into fists on the table. "You think he was involved?" "I think a lot of things, but I've never been able to prove any of them." That night, back at the villa, Dante showed Sophia to a room he'd been reluctant to open before. Julia's room, preserved exactly as she'd left it 5 years ago. It felt like walking into a time capsule. The room was decorated in soft pastels, rose pink and cream. Books lined the shelves, romance novels and poetry. On the dresser was a jewelry box, and inside, among the necklaces and bracelets, Sophia found something that made her blood run cold. A locket, identical to the one she wore around her neck. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was the same photograph, 2 babies lying side by side. She had one too, Sophia breathed. She had the other locket. Dante moved closer, staring at the locket in Sophia's hand. She wore that every day. She said it was the only thing she had from her birth mother, but she never knew what the photo meant. 2 halves of the same whole, Sophia whispered. We each had one half of the story. As they searched through the room, Sophia found a diary tucked away in the back of a drawer. Julia's handwriting was delicate, feminine, filling page after page with her thoughts, her fears, her dreams. Sophia sat on the bed and began to read, Dante looking over her shoulder. Most of it was what you'd expect. Observations about daily life, notes about Dante's work, worries about fitting into his dangerous world. But then, 2 months before her death, the entries changed. I found something today that I don't understand, Sophia read aloud. Papers in Giovanni's old study, documents about adoptions, about money changing hands. There were 2 names on the list, mine, and another baby girl born the same day. Were we adopted together? Did I have a sister? Why didn't anyone tell me? Sophia's voice shook as she continued reading. I confronted Marco about it. He was Giovanni's lawyer. He handled the adoption. He told me I was imagining things, that the stress of being married to Dante was making me paranoid. But I know what I saw. I'm going to find out the truth. The next entry was dated 3 days before Julia died. Marco admitted it. We were twins, separated at adoption. But he won't tell me why or where my sister is. He says it's for my own protection, that some secrets are better left buried. He's scared. I can see it in his eyes. But scared of what? Of whom? I'm going to meet with a private investigator tomorrow. If Marco won't tell me the truth, I'll find it myself. There were no more entries after that. Sophia looked up at Dante, and she saw her own horror reflected in his eyes. She knew, Sophia said. She found out about me and someone killed her for it. Marco. Dante's voice was death itself. Marco knew. He's known this entire time. But why? Sophia stood, pacing the room. Why would he care if she found out she had a twin? What difference does it make? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Dante pulled out his phone, but Sophia grabbed his arm. Wait, if we confront him now, if he knows we know, he might run. Or worse, he might come after us. She thought quickly, her translator's mind accustomed to putting pieces of information together. There has to be more. If Marco was involved in the adoptions, if he knew something that made Julia dangerous to someone, then there are records, documents, something that explains why. Dante's eyes narrowed. The Catacombas de San Gennaro. Marco's family has used them for storage for decades. Old records, documents they don't want in official offices. If there's proof of what really happened, it would be there. Then that's where we need to go. It was a reckless plan, possibly a suicidal one, but Sophia was done running from the truth. Her sister had died looking for answers. The least Sophia could do was finish what Julia had started. 2 nights later, under the cover of darkness, Dante and Sophia descended into the ancient catacombs beneath Naples. The tunnels were cold and damp, lit only by the flashlights they carried. Water dripped from the ceiling, and the smell of earth and age filled the air. "This way," Dante said, leading her through the maze-like passages. He knew these tunnels. His family had used them for generations for purposes Sophia tried not to think too hard about. They reached a heavy wooden door reinforced with iron bands. Dante made quick work of the lock, and they entered a chamber filled with filing cabinets and boxes stacked to the ceiling. "Start looking," Dante said. "Anything from 1997 or 1998. Anything about adoptions." They searched for what felt like hours, sorting through decades of documents. Most of it was mundane: business records, property deeds, contracts. But then Sophia found it. A manila folder labeled simply 1997 Special Arrangements. Inside were documents that made Sophia's hands shake as she read them. 2 adoption contracts, dated the same day. Baby girls, twins, born October 15th, 1997. One adopted by the Russo family, one by the Moretti family. But there was more. Another document, a letter written in Italian. "The children must be separated," Sophia read aloud, translating as she went. "Under no circumstances can they discover their relationship. The mother has paid handsomely for their placement in good homes, but the condition was clear. They must never know about each other. She has her reasons we are not to question. Giovanni Russo and Robert Moretti have both agreed to these terms. They will receive payment annually as long as the secret is kept. They were paid to keep you apart," Dante said, his voice rough with anger. "Your adoptive families were paid to lie to you." "But by whom?" Sophia looked at the letter, but there was no signature. "Who was our mother? Why would she do this?" Dante took the letter, examining it closely. Then his expression changed, and Sophia saw something she'd never seen in his face before. Fear. "The handwriting," he said quietly. "I've seen this handwriting before. It's—" He stopped, unable to continue. "Dante, whose handwriting is it?" "My father's," Dante whispered. This was written by Lorenzo Caruso. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Sophia staggered back, her mind reeling. "Your father? But why would your father be involved in our adoption?" Before Dante could answer, they heard it. Footsteps in the tunnel outside, multiple sets, moving fast. "We need to go," Dante said urgently, grabbing Sophia's hand. "Now!" But it was too late. The chamber door burst open, and Marco Vitale stood there, flanked by 4 armed men. His handsome face was twisted with rage and something else. Desperation. "I wondered how long it would take you to figure it out," Marco said, pulling a gun from his jacket. "I tried to warn you, Dante. I tried to make you let it go, but you just couldn't leave the past alone." "You killed her," Dante said, his voice deadly calm. "You killed Julia." "I didn't want to." Marco's composure cracked. "She was supposed to let it go. I told her the truth didn't matter, that knowing about her sister wouldn't change anything. But she wouldn't listen. She was going to expose everything, and I couldn't let that happen." "Why?" Sophia demanded, finding her voice. "Why did it matter so much?" Marco's laugh was bitter. "Because of who your mother is. Because if the truth came out, it would destroy everything. The alliance, the peace, all of it." "Tell me," Dante commanded, and despite the guns pointed at them, his voice carried absolute authority. "Tell me who their mother is, Marco, or I swear to God." "Isabella Moretti," Marco spat out. "The daughter of Don Moretti, head of the Moretti crime family. Your family's biggest rival, Dante. And your father's mistress 28 years ago." The world stopped spinning. Sophia felt like she couldn't breathe. "That's impossible," Dante said, but his voice wavered. "Is it? Your father and Isabella Moretti had an affair in the mid-90s. She got pregnant with twins. But if anyone found out, it would have meant war. So they made a deal. The babies would be separated, adopted out under different names. Isabella would disappear from Italy, and everyone would forget it ever happened." Marco's eyes were wild now. But Julia remembered. Somewhere deep in her subconscious, she remembered having a sister. And when she started digging, when she started asking questions, she became a liability. "So you killed her," Sophia breathed. "You killed my sister to protect a secret." "To protect the family," Marco shouted. "To protect the peace. If the truth came out, every family in southern Italy would be at war. Hundreds would die. The Morettis and the Carusos uniting through blood? It would shift the entire balance of power." "You should have told me," Dante said, and there was such pain in his voice that Sophia's heart broke for him. "You should have come to me, Marco. We could have figured it out together. You loved her too much. You would have chosen her over the family, over everything we built." "You're damn right I would have." What happened next occurred in seconds, but felt like hours. Marco raised his gun, pointing it at Sophia. "She's the proof, Dante. As long as she exists, the secret isn't safe. I'm sorry, but she has to—" Dante moved. It was instinct, pure protective instinct. He threw himself in front of Sophia just as Marco pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Sophia screamed as Dante staggered, blood blooming across his white shirt. But Dante didn't fall. His own gun was in his hand now, and he fired 3 times in rapid succession. Marco went down, as did 2 of his men. The other 2 dropped their weapons, hands raised in surrender. "Dante!" Sophia caught him as he swayed, pressing her hands against the wound in his shoulder. Blood, hot and red, poured between her fingers. "Oh God, Dante, stay with me." "I'm okay," he managed, though his face was pale. "Shoulder wound. I've had worse." He looked at Marco, who was gasping on the ground, blood pooling beneath him. "Call an ambulance. For him, not me." "Why?" Sophia demanded. "He tried to kill us." "Because he's going to live long enough to confess everything. Every detail, every name. And then justice will be served." In the days that followed, the truth came spilling out. Marco, faced with a choice between a quick death and a slow, painful one, chose to talk. He confessed to everything. Julia's murder, made to look like an accident. The cover-up, involving bribes and threats. The secrets he'd kept for the Caruso family for decades. Lorenzo Caruso, Dante's father, confirmed the story from his estate in Sicily, where he'd retired years ago. Yes, he'd had an affair with Isabella Moretti. Yes, Sophia and Julia were his daughters. He'd made the decision to separate them, thinking it was the only way to prevent war. "I thought I was protecting everyone," Lorenzo told Dante and Sophia when they confronted him. The old man looked every one of his 68 years, burdened by guilt and regret. "But all I did was destroy lives. Julia's, yours, your mother's." "Where is she?" Sophia asked. "Where is Isabella Moretti?" "California," Lorenzo said quietly. "She's lived there for 28 years, under a different name. She made me promise never to contact her, never to tell the girls about her. She thought it was the only way to keep you safe." Sophia and Dante flew to Los Angeles 2 weeks later. The address Lorenzo gave them led to a small house in a quiet neighborhood, so different from the violent world they'd left behind in Naples. The woman who answered the door was in her late 50s, with threads of gray in her dark hair and eyes the same green hazel as Sophia's. She took one look at them, and her hand flew to her mouth. "Sophia," she whispered. Then, looking at Dante with recognition, "You're Lorenzo's son." "I am," Dante confirmed. "And Sophia is your daughter. Yours and my father's." Isabella Moretti, now Isabella Grant, invited them inside. Over coffee and tears, she told them everything. The affair, the pregnancy, the impossible choice she'd been forced to make. "I wanted to keep you both so badly," she said, holding Sophia's hands. "But they told me if I did, if anyone found out, you'd never be safe. The rival families would use you, hurt you, maybe even kill you. So I let you go, and it broke my heart. Every single day for 28 years, I've thought about my girls." "Julia," Sophia said softly. Her name was Julia, and she was beautiful and kind and brave, and someone killed her because of secrets that should have been told from the beginning. Isabella wept then, grieving for the daughter she'd never known and would never get to meet. But through the tears, something else emerged. Understanding, forgiveness, and slowly, carefully, the beginning of healing. The journey back to Naples felt different. Sophia sat next to Dante on his private plane, watching the sunset over the Atlantic. So much had changed in 2 months. She'd arrived in Italy as a lonely translator looking for belonging. Now she knew who she was, where she came from, and what she'd lost without ever knowing she'd had it. "What will you do now?" Dante asked, his arm still in a sling from the gunshot wound. "Now that you have answers?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not sure. Part of me wants to go back to Boston, back to normal life. But that doesn't feel like home anymore. Maybe it never really did." "And what does feel like home?" Sophia turned to look at him, this dangerous man who'd protected her, mourned with her, nearly died for her. And she realized something she'd been trying not to admit for weeks. "You do," she said simply. "This feels like home. Being here, in this world, even though it terrifies me. Because for the first time in my life, I understand why I always felt incomplete. I was missing half of myself. I was missing Julia." Dante's expression was unreadable. "Sophia, you don't belong in my world. You saw what it costs. Julia died because of it." "Julia died because people kept secrets," Sophia corrected. "Because they thought lies would protect everyone. But the truth is always safer than lies, Dante. Even when it's hard." "The truth," Dante repeated slowly. Then, with visible effort, he said, "The truth is that I'm falling in love with you, and I hate myself for it because you look like her, you sound like her, and I can't tell if what I feel is real or just a ghost of what I felt before." Sophia's breath caught. She reached out and took his hand, the one not in the sling. "Can I tell you something that might make you hate yourself a little less? Please. I'm not Julia. I'm her twin, yes. We share DNA and a tragic past. But we're different people. I'm not gentle like she was. I'm not light in a dark world. I'm just me, flawed and scared and trying to figure out who I am." "I know that," Dante said. "I do know that, Sophia. And that's why I'm falling for you. Not because you remind me of her, but because you're brave enough to stay when anyone with sense would run. Because you looked at the worst parts of my life and didn't flinch. Because when I see you, I don't see a ghost. I see hope. I see a future I didn't think I'd ever have again." Tears filled Sophia's eyes. "I'm falling for you too, and it terrifies me. But I think Julia would want this. I think she'd want us both to be happy, even if that happiness is complicated and messy and built on tragedy." Dante pulled her close, careful of his injured shoulder, and kissed her forehead. "Stay," he whispered. "Stay in Naples. Stay with me. I can't promise you safety or normalcy or any of the things you deserve. But I can promise you truth. And I can promise you that I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the trust you're placing in me." "I'll stay," Sophia said. "But on one condition. Anything. We tell the truth from now on. No more secrets, no more lies. If we're going to do this, we do it in the light." "In the light," Dante agreed. "Even in my dark world, we'll find the light." 6 months later, Sophia stood in the gardens of Villa Caruso, surrounded by olive trees and the scent of jasmine. She'd moved into the villa permanently, taking over Julia's room and slowly making it her own. It had been painful at first, living in the space her sister had occupied. But over time, it had become healing. She could feel Julia there, in the walls, in the air. And sometimes, late at night, Sophia would talk to her sister, telling her about her day, about Dante, about the life they were building together. Dante had changed too. Not completely. He was still dangerous, still commanded respect and fear in equal measure. But with Sophia, he was softer, more open. He smiled more, laughed occasionally. It was like watching ice slowly melt in the spring sun. They'd traveled to California twice more to visit Isabella. The relationship was tentative, careful, but growing. Isabella had met the daughter she'd given away, heard stories about the daughter she'd lost, and slowly, she was becoming part of their lives. The Moretti and Caruso families were navigating an uneasy peace now that the truth was public. Some were angry at the deception, others relieved to avoid war. Lorenzo had stepped down completely, leaving Dante in full control. It was a new era, built on transparency instead of secrets. Sophia had continued her translation work, but had also started something new. A project documenting the stories of women who'd been affected by organized crime. Giving voice to the silent, the forgotten, the ones who lived in the shadows of powerful men. It gave her purpose beyond just being Dante's partner. "What are you thinking about?" Dante asked, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. "Everything," Sophia said honestly. "How much has changed? How much I've changed. Do you regret it? Any of it?" Sophia turned in his arms to face him. The setting sun painted his face in warm gold, softening his sharp edges. "No. Even though it's been hard, even though I lost Julia before I ever got to know her, I don't regret it. Because I found you. I found my mother. I found myself. I love you," Dante said, and the words still felt new, still carried weight every time he said them. "I love you too," Sophia replied, and meant it with her whole heart. As they stood there in the garden, the Gulf of Naples stretching out beyond them, Sophia thought about destiny, about fate, about the strange, twisting road that had led her from Boston to this moment, to this man, to this life she never could have imagined. She thought about Julia, and how her sister's death had somehow given Sophia life, how tragedy and hope were intertwined in ways you couldn't separate. "Do you think she knows?" Sophia asked quietly. "Julia, do you think she knows we're together, that we're happy?" Dante was quiet for a moment, then said, "I think she orchestrated all of it from wherever she is now. I think she knew that you'd come here, that we'd find each other, that you'd finish what she started. Julia always believed in happy endings, even when there was no reason to." "Then we'll make this one count," Sophia said. "For her, for us, for everyone who didn't get their happy ending. For all of them," Dante agreed. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold, they stayed there in the garden. Two people who'd been broken by the past, now holding each other in the present, and daring to believe in a future together. Because love, real love, doesn't always come in neat packages. Sometimes it comes wrapped in tragedy and tied with secrets. Sometimes it comes when you're not looking for it, with the person you least expect. Sometimes it looks like your dead wife's twin sister, and it's messy and complicated and impossible to explain. But it's real, and it's worth fighting for, worth staying for, worth building a life around, even when that life is complicated and dangerous, and built on the ashes of the past. Sophia had come to Naples looking for belonging. She'd found a sister she never knew existed, a mother who'd given her up to keep her safe, and a man who taught her that love doesn't always look the way you expect it to. She'd found home, not in a place, but in the truth, in honesty, in the courage to face the past and build something new from its ruins. And in the end, that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey through Naples, through love, through secrets and truth. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to leave us a like. It helps us share these stories with more people who need a little romance and hope in their lives. Don't forget to subscribe to Manuela's Story Library so you never miss a new story. We have so many more tales to tell, so many more hearts to explore. And we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell us, do you believe in second chances? Do you think Dante and Sophia's love was destiny? Or did they create their own happy ending? Your thoughts mean the world to us, and we read every single comment. Until next time, dear friends, remember that every ending is just a new beginning in disguise. Keep believing in love, keep hoping for happy endings, and we'll see you in the next story. This is Manuela's Story Library, where every story finds a home. Take care, and may your own love story be filled with truth, courage, and hope.